All right, and welcome to Hat Trick Sports Talk. I am Robert. Along with me, as always, is Shane and Brandon. Say hi, guys.
Hey, hey.
Hello there.
All right, let's get started. And we are beginning, as we seem to always do over the last couple months, with Major League Baseball. They have finally announced that they are going to be starting their regular season. 60-game slate.
Hooray!
Yes, hooray, hooray. They're slated to begin on July 23rd and 24th, so a little bit earlier than the NBA and the NHL. 60-game slate is expected to conclude on September 27th. Teams will play 40 games within their division and the remaining 20 against their corresponding division. Brandon, I'll start with you. The owners have seemed to won this battle.
I don't know if they have won the battle, but I would say, in the long term, yeah, I think so. But I think in the short term, actually, I would flip it around. I would say in the short term, I would say the owners have won. In the long term, I would say the players are the ones who have won. Because if you think about it this way, yes, the owners get their money this season, and the players get their money. But the players, with their last move, really highlighted the fact that they don't have a good representation in the NFLPA.
MLBPA in this sense.
Trevor Bauer came out with a statement literally saying, and as we know, he's been one of the most outspoken players. He came out with a statement saying, so we give up X, Y, and Z more pay for the same thing without all that stuff.
How similar is this to the March deal? It's basically, or it's pretty close to the March 23rd deal, is it not?
The March 23rd deal was supposed to be the whole season, play 180 games, prorated. What Trevor Bauer was talking about is the deal that the MLB put out before that they gave to the MLBPA. That was turned down by the PA, and then the PA came back with their own deal.
Mm-hmm.
That deal was 60 games prorated with all the stuff they wanted. So like X, Y, and Z, everything was checked off. So that's why Trevor Bauer was saying, why the hell did we turn this down when we had, a deal that in place that would have gotten us. So I'm getting the sense that I'm feeling like there's probably going to be a new representative in the MLBPA, but.
Mm-hmm. Shane, did the owners win for you, at least in the short term, as Brandon said?
I would say, well, let me ask first, what was the exact deal that was made in terms of who gets what kind of money? Because that's really the key.
I think it was just 60 games prorated with some safety stuff. I haven't seen too much in terms of, what is the structure of the schedule, but there was some issues with safety that needed to be ironed out. That got cleared up, of course, but I think it was just 60 games prorated straight out. I don't think it was any more than that.
So we're, I think.
Brennan's looking it up.
Yeah. I think I found the deal here. Yeah. So it's a 60-game deal. MLB proposed a 60-game deal with full pro rata pay and no fans in the stands after the players moved to play a 70-game slate. The executive council voted to reject it, and then the MLB conceded that the players have agreed to a full slate of health and safety issues. So basically, it's a deal that is about the same as, I think it's basically just they get full prorated salaries.
They get paid
for
for
the
the full
60.
season.
For the 60 games.
Okay.
60
They
games.
It's not the whole season, which is what they were stupidly asking for a long time.
Yeah, in that case.
Oh, plus I think plus they get I think they're doing DH.
Yes, they are doing DH for 2020 and I believe 2021 as well.
Yeah, they're doing DH for 2020 and 2021 and extended playoffs for 2020 and 2021.
And what we mean by DH is universal DH, so both AL and NL.
Well, in that case, I'll be honest, I don't think either side really won. I mean, because the players don't get the kind of money they want. And not that they deserved a full salary, as Brennan said, but and then, for the owners, I mean, as long as you don't have fans in the stadium, I mean, you're not going to make a ton of money, especially in a sport like baseball, because, I mean, the TV deals just aren't as good, especially when we're going to have, by the time baseball starts, we're going to be getting back into gear for the NBA playoffs. So, at least in the short term, I don't think anybody really won this deal, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But, long term, I think it could be, a good thing for the players, just knowing that they need better representation and whatnot. And as Brandon kind of touched on. But, all in all, I'm just shocked that they actually came to a deal.
Well, I think on that point, Shane, I think the reason they came to a deal is because I think the owners and I think MLB and the MLBPA both finally started looking at social media and seeing that fans were starting to just be like, screw you guys.
Right.
We don't
so fans were
care.
starting to act like regular internet trolls.
Well, not even that. But it's not even that. It's basically fans were starting to be like, look, we get it, but as I've said way at the beginning of this whole thing, they were being so blind to the reality of everything. People were saying we just want to watch baseball. This is not the year to be making arguments about spending. And also, MLB is a sport that cannot afford to be out of the spotlight for a whole year. It will lose its traction like that.
They have been in the spotlight, but for not necessarily the best reasons.
Right.
But this is part of the field. This is part of the problem. The MLB could have figured this out in March, and then they probably would have started in June. And guess what this whole show would have been? We're talking about MLB for a month and a half.
Right.
From June to now. It's the end of basically we would be talking about MLB from let's say June 1st to July 31st when the NBA comes back, or July 30th. That's what they missed out on. And that's what I don't think they realize. It's we could have had a span where games could have started, and we probably could have figured out this exact 60-game season, and we would have started a month earlier. And on top of that, there was pressure from the other leagues. The NBA got their deal done. The MLS, as we talked about, got a new CBA done. And then we're what is the MLB doing?
And honestly, I feel like we're going to be back at the same spot, not next year, but, not even that. I mean, we're going to be back in the same spot January 1st of 2022. We're going to be sitting here, or the first week of January in 2022, we're going to be sitting down and we're doing our first episode and going, all right, let's see what happens with the MLB CBA negotiation.
Right.
I don't even think I could put money on there being no season in 2023.
I'm pretty confident in that as well.
Money on it.
I'm pretty confident in that as well.
If this happened this year, oh my goodness, they're not going to come to a conclusion if they have a whole 6 months to come to a deal. No, they're not. No, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen.
And final point on this part of MLB starting their season, I think that's important to realize is that this is it was basically like an unnecessary CBA negotiation the last 3 months. It was like starting the 2022 negotiations 2 years early for no reason whatsoever. And that was just another part of the frustration.
There was a purpose to it, just because they had to. I mean, there's a huge issue with obviously salaries and stuff when you can't play a full season,
right?
Whatnot. But I know what you mean.
I will give credit to the MLBPA because they took it. I mean, even though I don't appreciate what they did, they took advantage of the fact that it's a pandemic going on and used it to stand their ground. However, at some point they probably should have gone, is this really worth pushing the issue here, or do we use this as leverage and say, like, hey, we're going to agree to your deal now, but, like, this isn't over?
The negotiation just now seems wasteful. It's like they wasted 3 months.
I mean, nothing happened. Nothing came out of it. It was basically just like, and did I not say that though? Like a month ago, I feel like I said at one point, like, this is just gonna go in a circle, and then they're just gonna agree to something in June or July, and then have like a short season and be like, okay, now what?
But nothing was accomplished. Basically, is what we're getting to at the end of the day.
What I hope we hear is that you have MLB and MLBPA starting to figure out how the hell to play a full season in 2020 or 2021. Like,
right.
Because they're still, even if we have a vaccine produced for, let's say Fauci's correct and like it's going to be faster than we think it is. Like,
and let's say February.
In February.
Yeah.
Right. And people are, enough of America is vaccinated that people can go to games and yada, yada, yada. To me, it's not about whether people can go to games. It is about finding out ways with the advanced time to create situations where players can play the game. Because there is no excuse for there not to be a season in 2021 for any sport at all, in my opinion.
Depending on how this works. Like, if all leagues do this successfully, that's a different thing. If let's say everything's successful, there's no reason why not. But let's say there isn't.
That's my thing, Robert. Like you have a year with some of these leagues. Like okay, maybe not a year, but like there's no reason that leagues cannot be sitting down once the leagues restart and going, all right, how are we going to figure out a way to get a full season in?
Right.
Like, it just feels like there should be ways to get a full season in.
It depends on, I think for the MLB, I think it's going to be 30 games in. And I honestly think for the NBA, it's going to be a month in. The NBA, they've already stated, because remember, the cases are growing rapidly. We got the most cases ever basically yesterday, especially in the Orlando area, so it's going to be a kind of a wait and see thing. But for the NBA in particular, they said if there's too many cases, they're going to shut the whole thing down and say it didn't work and we'll reconvene at a later time. So, and that's going to be the same thing with the MLB. If there's enough cases, guess what? Done. They're going to shut it down. And that's the worst case scenario, but leagues are not only going to have to worry about the best case scenario, they're going to have to worry about the worst case scenario. And what if, God forbid, we do have that worst case scenario? What happens then?
I don't know. I just feel like at some point, like, it's just like, if you are a player and you literally rely on staying healthy to play a sport to make money, how hard is it not to do something dumb like going to a party or going somewhere where you're going to catch the virus?
Mm-hmm. If you're in a bad situation, yeah.
It's so frustrating. It's so like mind melding to me that it's like you would go to a party or you would go to somewhere and you are a professional athlete whose whole
and you're not wearing a mask. I mean, if you're wearing a mask, that's different. But but see, that's what's. But
yeah, I mean.
Right. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing for me. This is what's weird about it. The NBA is like, we're going to do this bubble thing. The MLB's not doing a bubble thing. They're just going to travel around. And then what happens in the playoffs? What if a team has got to travel across country and all this stuff? I mean, the UFC's been pretty solid at this, but obviously they have an island. They're doing fights in Vegas, and it's a little bit different. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, this is not the same thing as a bubble thing or an island thing. That's a huge part of the issue here.
Well, I think with MLB, I feel like MLB will be more fine because with the way they're doing things with travel, it's like you travel, you go to your hotel, you stay in your hotel, you go to the game, you get tested, you play the game, you go back to your hotel, you stay there, you get on your plane, you go home. I think the thing will be trusting that players aren't going to be stupid, aren't going to go out, no, it's more like players at home, like players who are on the home team, who are at their houses in cities that have opened up. Because I mean, I get it. Everybody wants to go out and stuff, but like
it's all about, I mean, for me, here's the biggest thing. For me, it's like, if these players are smart enough to go out and wear a mask and follow the safety procedures, then they're most likely going to be fine, as with the rest of us. But it's those small percentage of players that don't do that that's going to be the most frustrating, because that could cause problems for all leagues. But Brandon, I wanted to ask you another question with this as well. So the trade deadline is moving to August 31st. And with this schedule, we got, 20 teams against the division, or 20 teams against the other league, or 40 games with their division, 40 games within their division, and the remaining 20 against the corresponding division. Who does this benefit the most? Are there particular teams, particular divisions where this 40-20 division and corresponding division thing helps and makes the playoff road easier?
Like what team? Like specific teams?
Teams or specific divisions that you think are going to have a much easier time?
I think you're going to see a lot less like teams that I think we're going to see less Cinderellas this year than in previous years, because of the fact that like there's not going to be as many teams. I don't think we're going to see as many trades this year.
I don't think so either. I don't think it would be a great idea.
Because I don't think anybody's really going to want to like uproot their life in the middle of a pandemic.
That's why I'm surprised they kept the trade deadline in the first place. They should just said no trades.
Because there's no, like, you can't, if you're in the minor league, you can't be traded this year. I think maybe. Well, I think obviously the contenders will. I think the obvious contenders are the ones who will benefit the most from it, because they don't have to worry about like teams that are chasing them being able to like bolster their lineups. But it's interesting though, because I heard Jerry DiPoto on the morning show for 710, and he was being asked about what the plans were for the Mariners this year and how they were approaching the season, and they basically said that the team was approaching the season as an opportunity for players to grow. Like the players who are on the team, he sees it as opportunity, as kind of an extended advancement period. They're still going to compete. They're still going to play hard. They're still going to fight. But like, it sounded to me like he had realistic expectations, you know? Mm-hmm. To me, I feel like the team will still, which is good to me, because like, yes, it's only 60 games, but we don't know how good this team was going to be anyway. And it's still a building team. What I would like to see is maybe one or two of the players who were just on the edge of making it from AAA to the show get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not bring up a pitcher or two, like a pitcher or a hitter? Like, just it's an opportunity, I think, and it can show for the future. I mean, who knows? Maybe we could get a Ken Griffey Jr. situation here. But I'm just excited to watch baseball. Frankly, I've kind of felt like there's been something in my evenings that has been missing. Like I'm so used to just like watching highlights from baseball games in the evening. So
Shane,
yeah.
with that thing that DePoto was talking about with the Mariners, as Shane brought up, these teams that are considered like underdogs are not necessarily in that contending role. Do you think more teams are going to approach it in that way of like trying to get some of these minor leaguers up there and try to be more of a building block year for some of these teams that aren't contenders with the 60 games?
Yeah, I think so. Just because it's not at least I would, if I was an owner or a manager, because I mean, you're not gonna make a ton of money this year as a franchise, and it's just a strange year as is. Um, so you got all these young guys, and I mean, why not take advantage of this year? It's a short season. It's like it's like an extra. It's to me, it's almost like an extra long spring training for next year when things are back to normal, quote unquote. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of teams kind of taking that approach. I don't think that everyone's really going to be taking the season all that seriously this year. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, all things considered. I think more than anything, they just want to play, and
Yeah.
they will.
All right, so Brandon, you brought this up in our chat the other day, or yesterday actually, to bring up with the show. And surprisingly, not a lot of people have talked about this story. So I was really surprised to not hear it from very many outlets. But the Grizzlies could invoke an early termination clause unless Memphis's Shelby County pays for the attendance shortfall. This whole article is from Evan Barnes of the Memphis Commercial Appeal. So an agreement that kicked in this season that Shelby County and Memphis will have to purchase the required number of suites or season tickets to cure the regular season shortfall. Of course, this is partially due to COVID-19, but it's also due to the short or small attendance in Memphis. Normally, they get 15,857 fans, according to ESPN. That's their average. So not a full stadium. The Grizzlies have 60 days to void the stadium agreement or not. More than likely, they won't void it. But why do you want to talk about this story and address it? Because I do think it is interesting.
So I wanted to address it because I wanted to ask you guys, as sports fans in Seattle, and I know as basketball fans and as Sonics fans, I've been going through this when I first heard the story again on Danny's show in the morning on 710. I was like, oh wow, like there's this Danny Gallant. And I was like, oh wow, there's this opportunity. Like this is such a ripe opportunity for Seattle to swoop in and take this team. But then I was sitting there and I was thinking, this feels way too much like the situation the Sonics had, like with having arena issues and money and blah yada yada. So my question is attendance. So my issue is, Shane and Robert, would you feel dirty if the city of Seattle did the same thing to another team, another city, to take their team, just like how we had a team taken?
So first off, the Kings a couple of years ago, was that also very similar? or not?
Yeah, it was, because they had to find a way to build a new arena or finance it.
I don't think this is going to happen because I honestly think Memphis as a specific team is a growing team that can definitely compete for a title, let's say 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, you have John Moran, of course, who will definitely win Rookie of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark. It's a really young team. I think Memphis and the Grizzlies themselves expect that attendance will rise over the next few years. I mean, let's be honest. This is one of the more entertaining teams, not only just to watch on NBA League Pass, but even on national TV. They had a few ESPN games here and there. Memphis knows, and the Grizzlies themselves know, that they are going to have better attendance numbers in the years to come as the team will inevitably get better. But it does beg the question about what is the pathway for the Sonics to get a team back. And I've also mentioned Vegas as another suitor. Look, the NFL is now in Vegas. The NHL is now in Vegas. It's inevitable that the NBA would love to get in that market, especially if it works well. But Shane, what are your thoughts on this whole thing first before I let Brandon go?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would obviously love to see the Sonics back, of course, but like Robert said, there's this atmosphere growing in Memphis that I think the people around there are, starting to kind of buy in and be fans of this team. And, I mean, in the end, I would be surprised if they ended up leaving. I mean, they could, and if they did, Seattle or Vegas would probably be their top destination, I'd imagine. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have what, 60 days to decide, you said?
Yes, 60 days.
Yeah.
30 to 60 around there, but I don't think they're going to do it. I think it'd be really strange, but
I mean, that's a team that's moved around a lot anyways.
Yeah, Vancouver and then Memphis, yeah.
So I'll say this. I think speaking on your idea about Vegas, I don't think Vegas is not. So, okay. So Vegas is a kind of an enigma, right? It is not what a lot of people think in terms of a town. It has so much going on in such a small area, and then everything else is just like outside of it, that a lot of what I've heard is not a lot of people believe that the city would want a third sports team, because I don't believe Vegas could hold 3 sports teams. They have hockey. That was great because they didn't have any sports teams. They're getting a football team. That'll be great. But I don't think they would want to try and have a basketball team and a hockey team competing against each other for eyeballs in a city like Vegas.
And also, don't forget, MMA and boxing is just always there too.
And so, yeah, at the end, before, just one last thing before you go, Shane.
That's fine.
I'll say this. Memphis has moved around a lot, yes. And they do have their claws there. And they might have like this, like it might starting to be like an era of like, yeah, basketball in Memphis. But I will remind you, even in the last year where the Sonics sucked and they were terrible, there was still an argument to be made that there was one of the most passionate fan bases in the country in Seattle.
Well, I mean, that's Seattle, though. Seattle as a sports city.
But that's my point. Like, if you're gonna choose between any other city, I mean, the NBA has no argument anymore for not bringing a team to Seattle the first chance they have. They know that Seattle draws numbers in any sports. I mean, Seattle is a big city. It's a medium-sized city, but in sports, it's a big city market.
No, it absolutely is. And that's always been my argument for years. But I think another thing with the NBA, too, is you look at the Thunder, and yes, they have been successful over their tenure in Oklahoma. That's a super small market. The thing that they did,
it's a super small city that draws a super small market number.
It's a college crowd.
Yeah.
It's not an NBA crowd. And that's part of the thing is I think the NBA realizes, well, yes, Oklahoma City is a good market to be in. It's not Seattle in terms of the market value that they have or the market share. I mean, it only added to the free agency worries and the free agency things about, oh, we're going to expand the money for players to stay with their own team. They only added that or added more money to that partially because of Oklahoma City, because of guys like Westbrook and even Paul George to a degree wanting them to stay around. It was a bit of a reaction to KD leaving, but I mean, Shane, go ahead with your thoughts on it.
Well, and that's part of the thing with Vegas too, because Vegas, it's a lot smaller than people think, because a lot of the traffic and the people there are tourists, and so the city itself is, I think, only like 500,000 people, which is not. I mean, it's not huge, but then. If you look at a city like Seattle, for instance, the city is medium size, but the surrounding area in the metro is giant. I mean, there's 4 million people in the Seattle metropolitan area. But Vegas, there's nothing around Vegas. The only thing around Vegas is Area 51. I mean, that's like, I mean, it's true. So, there's like a couple towns south of it, but other than that, I mean, you go north, there's some stuff, but then it's just kind of empty desert for miles and miles and miles. So, I don't know.
Also, I'll say this: I don't think the Knights would be too happy, would want a basketball team coming in, considering for Vegas being so small, they average a 405 like rating on their games.
Yeah.
And they were 12th in the NHL last season. So
I mean, I think part of that is like the hype of them actually going to Stanley Cup their first year. They weren't amazing the last couple of years, but the first year with the Stanley Cup year, that obviously added to the hype for the city as well. I think for Vegas, I think obviously those are the top two cities for the NBA. It's Seattle and Vegas, but I think the only way we know if Vegas works is how big the Raiders are going to get, because we know that the Knights are pretty big, but if the Raiders get pretty big, the NBA won't have a choice. And I think at some point they have to table a discussion, whether that will dilute the league or not. They have to table an honest discussion about, okay, can we get Seattle and Vegas in here as expansion teams?
Right, because whatever expansion they do, I mean, I'm not even, and like anybody listening to this is probably gonna be like, oh, you're just a homer, but I'm like, no, it's a fact. The next expansion that happens.
This is not a homer discussion. I mean, we're bringing in Vegas in this.
The next expansion that has to happen. I mean, yes, Vegas is great, but like it has to be Seattle. Like, I'm
even
sorry,
players want it. That's another thing.
If it's not Seattle, people are gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah,
NBA, like, this is whack.
Yeah. We'll also get to the name of their new arena with Key Arena. We'll get to that in a little bit as Brandon does chuckle there. We'll get to that in a bit. Shane, I wanted to bring back a discussion we've had a few months ago. There's this article from Zach Lowe of ESPN talking about Draymond Green, Chris Murphy, a Democrat senator from Connecticut, and them talking about the NCAA and fixing a lot of these issues in terms of inequalities with the NCAA, in terms of, they make, $14 billion in revenue NCAA does, and they don't give that to scholarship athletes, and the lack of health care for scholarship players, especially those who suffer career-threatening injuries. Green and Murphy have worked a lot side by side to try to fix some of these issues with college basketball. Of course, California has also, or college basketball and football, but California has also made it, I think, in a couple of years, giving players the right to make money from their likenesses. Where do you think the NCAA needs to move forward in terms of, following some of these guidelines, or how does the NCAA sort of change over the next few years, or how do you think it's going to change in the next 10 years, especially considering recruiting and all these other things?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's tricky when you say that they should be paid, purely off of royalties, which I have been, a supporter of. But then the more I thought about it, if you do it that way, football players are going to get a ton. Basketball is going to get not as much, but still quite a bit.
It's still going to get a bit. Yeah, it's still going to
And
get a
then
great
every other
amount.
sport's going to get nothing. I mean, if you really think about it. Because, who sits there and thinks, oh, have you seen that golfer from University of Oregon? No. It's like, that's where it's one of those, in that situation, when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, maybe everybody should just get, a base, just, I mean, not a fortune, but just enough for like living expenses. Because, most of them are there with free college from scholarships. So I don't, I don't think they should be paid a fortune, because, you look at other students and it's not like they get that luxury. But, being an athlete in college is basically a full-time job. Most of them can't really work between that and school, studying, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, give them $1,000 or $2,000 a month, just, like I said, to cover living expenses and stuff. I think that would be the best way to go. And like you said, insurance and, like health insurance, because, I mean, that
injuries
is,
happen.
I mean, that is kind of important. So, yeah, I mean, I mean, if you want to give them a right to their royalties for their jersey sales, I mean, I could go either way on that. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah.
I'm not sure if it's entirely jersey sales. I think it's more, especially in California, I think it is more focused on like these local car dealership deals or
yeah, whatever.
national
You know
sponsorships.
what I mean.
But maybe there's something with the jersey sales there. I haven't looked too deeply in it, but yeah. Brandon, how do you feel like the NCAA is going to react to these things that the Senators doing with Draymond Green, and also how do you think the NCAA is going to change in the next 10 years with this issue kind of being more focused in the forefront of sports?
First of all, I think it's a good start. I think it's interesting because if they could do something like this, starting to do fair pay, I think the what would really make me think things were changing is if finally we can get some laws on the books that allow athletes to get paid for jerseys with their names on the back in college. Because I mean, that's the whole reason that we're not allowed to have college sports games,
like
anymore.
Video games and things like that. Yeah,
because of representation, which honestly is such an obvious thing to so many people, except for the NCAA, because they don't want to give away a piece of their pie. Which I have a sneaking suspicion with the changes going on in the world, we're going to be seeing a change to that sometime soon.
I mean, we already have with California as well.
Right.
But yeah.
I think it's going to be an overwhelming, and I'm thinking like the actual NCAA will will come out at some point and say like they're changing the way they do things.
I mean, I think they've come out and changed a few of the things like a few months ago. But yeah, I think one of the more, I guess, shocking things about the way this has gone over the last few years is the fact that these local governments or state governments have to kind of intervene. And I don't think that the NCAA thought, oh, that's what's going to change things. Because, I mean, it affects recruiting a lot. I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of college coaches have said is like, well, California has a huge advantage, or I think Texas has done stuff similarly as well. Oh, Texas has a huge advantage. And I think that's part of it, too, is the recruiting piece. Shane, can you speak more on that?
Yeah, I mean, the recruiting thing is tough because, I mean, the people who have the most recruiting power have two things. A, they have a winning program and that people want to come and play for. And B, they have the most money. Just look at college football, for instance, right? I mean, you have Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. I mean, what are some other programs that are consistently good? Michigan, whatever. And, you wonder why they're so good year after year after year. Well, it's because they have all this money and they're like, oh, yeah, we win a lot. So they just spend and spend and spend and spend on recruits. Which is why, I mean, I think they do need to take a look at that and maybe think, okay, well, let's put a limit on how much you can spend on recruiting, because it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. I mean, it gets rid of the kind of the fun competitive nature in a way, or at least it has in the last few years for me. But
well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Pac-12 is kind of lower on the totem pole in terms of recruiting.
Yeah.
Well, it's all SEC, Big Ten,
and then Clemson in the ACC,
and then Clemson and Oklahoma. Yeah.
And it's also interesting too with the pandemic, just to sort of see these college programs kind of freaking out. It's like they never kind of had a fall safe for some. Of course, no one anticipated something this crazy to happen, but for a lot of these programs, like they have all this money rolling in, and now all of a sudden that money may not be rolling in as much. Obviously, it doesn't evade from the fact that these college athletes should get paid, as Shane said, a $1,000, $2,000 stipend and the likenesses and all that. But that was also interesting to see sort of these college programs keep spending and spending and spending because they didn't realize like, oh, what if something bad happens? There was no sort of insurance or fall safe for them, because it sort of seems like they keep spending and spending on pools, on arcades for the players, this or that, to make it seem like they don't have enough money. And then when things kind of go down the drain, they just don't have the money almost. And that was one of the weirdest things.
Robert, you're wrong. You said nobody anticipated this kind of pandemic, but Bill Gates did.
Right, that's right. But do you want to speak on that part as well? Obviously, that's another huge piece of this, but I think it's important to sort of talk about as well. Brandon, do you want to go with that piece now? I mean, I think that is one of those things that is interesting. It doesn't put. Here's the thing. It shows the sort of just ridiculousness of these programs to just keep spending and spending and spending. And I think it does also put the issue on the forefront of adding more to the players, because if you put more into the players, then you'll also have some money saved up to not always think about, the actual facilities, just to sort of, say that we don't have any money. I think that was kind of that kind of light bulb kind of flickered, especially with this pandemic, just to say like, hey, look, we got to focus more on the players. And that's why the insurance thing's in the forefront. The money's in the forefront in terms of giving these players these stipends and all this stuff. I think that issue is even bigger now because of the pandemic as well. Okay, so I sent this to you guys in our chat, and you guys gave me some pretty hilarious responses to this, whatever this was. with Seattle's new arena. So Amazon bought the rights. This is from Tim Booth. Amazon bought the naming rights for the new arena, and it's called Climate Pledge Arena. I don't even know where to start. Why and what, and I don't even know. You guys were as shocked as I were. What were your initial reactions to this?
I can't see your screen, by the way.
Oh, my bad. Is it glitching out now?
I don't know.
I can see it. You know, I mean, look, climate change, doing our best to combat it. I'm all for it, obviously. I mean, it's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah. But what a strange name for an arena.
Yeah.
Like when I saw Amazon has purchased the naming rights to the new arena, I figured it was going to be called Amazon Arena or something, which
would make sense.
Yeah, but then I look at your picture and I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I don't know.
I was thinking something like Prime Arena, like Prime Now Arena or something.
Brandon, what was your reaction to it?
Same as Shane's. I was like, okay.
And obviously, as Shane said, we all get the importance of climate change, but to actually put it on as the name of the arena. And another thing I brought up the other day was, especially here in Seattle, we have nicknames for all our arenas, and I'm sure that's the case across the country. CenturyLink is the Clink. When we had Safeco Field, it was like the Safe or whatever. Are we going to call this, let's go the Pledge and watch some hockey? Or like, what are we doing? Like, is that what we're, or like, let's go to the Pledge? Like, what's the nickname going to be for this thing?
Go to the Climate and watch hockey.
Like, it would be like the Clip.
Like
CLI, and then
yeah.
I don't know.
It's I like the logo. I like the message. I think it's like carbon neutral by 2040 for Amazon and all that stuff. I like it, but it seems unnecessary.
Carbon neutral arena.
But I mean, I'm kind of sad that we are now, not worried about Key Arena anymore, because I think keeping Key Arena would have made more sense. But Amazon should have done.
You know what's amazing about Key Arena being called Key Arena for as long as it was? Key Bank stopped paying for the rights to the name in the year 2008.
And they just kept it.
Yeah.
Because it was so synonymous for everybody here, and now Amazon. Yeah, this is just bizarre. I like the look of the new arena too. The outside looks awesome.
Amazon's taking over the city.
Pretty much.
But yeah.
Maybe this was Amazon's move to be like, ha, now you can't tax us. Ha.
It's going to be like what's that fictional company in all those Pixar movies that like takes over the world, BML or whatever.
Oh my god. I don't remember what the company name was, but yeah. Just
Bezos didn't just call it the Bezos Arena.
Let's go to Bezos and watch some hockey.
The Bezos.
Call it the Bezos Center.
Double person arena.
Oh my gosh. All right, Dak
the
Prescott.
Richest person in the world arena.
The richest person.
The bald head arena.
Oh my god. All right, so Dak Prescott has just signed his tender to stay with the Dallas Cowboys. It's $31.4 million. This negotiation obviously isn't over. I guess, did Dak win in the short term here by signing this deal? Or, like, who benefits from this one-year contract?
I mean, I feel like anybody wins when they get a $31 million contract for 1 year. I mean, I personally feel like unless you really hate the team you're on, if you're not taking the like deal like that. What are you doing? Like,
yeah.
Also, the way that it ran up over time, like if you look at how it's crazy how much the salary cap just like each year I think it doubles or something. So
yeah. Shane, what are your thoughts long term moving forward for the next few weeks and months, and maybe the whole 2020 season with these negotiations? Where they go now?
I mean, I don't know. The whole thing is weird because I don't totally know what they see in Dak Prescott, because it kind of because I think Dak thinks he's a lot better than he actually is, and it almost feels like Dallas isn't totally committed to him.
Oh,
Since
that's clear since he signed a franchise tag.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of. I'm really curious to see what happens this year because they brought in Mike McCarthy. I want to know how that dynamic's going to work out, because maybe it'll be great and they'll win a bunch of games and then they'll go, oh yeah, okay, you can stay here, whatever. Because if you look back to his rookie year when they went 13-3, at that time Jerry Jones, Jason Garrett, they said, oh yeah, he's a franchise guy, he's our guy, we love him, he's great, whatever. And now, I mean, you don't hear that anymore, really. So, if he has another breakout year like that one, things could be very different. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like they don't want to sign him to a long-term deal with $40 million a year, which is what he wants. So I don't, I really don't know what the future holds for the Cowboys. I guess at this rate, I don't see him staying there long term. I don't know where he would go. Depends on what the market looks like next year, but we'll see.
And as I've talked about, the worst part about this for the Cowboys is, they want a year to sort of figure out what him and McCarthy can do, but more deals are going to get done. Like, as I've talked about, is probably by the end of the summer, the Patrick Mahomes deal is going to get done. Like, that deal is going to get done fairly quickly once they're all able to kind of get back into camp and figure things out. And that's only going to drive his price up. The problem is him and his camp clearly feel like he's worth number one quarterback value, whatever that value is going to look like, especially if Patrick Mahomes gets his contract.
He's definitely worth top 10.
Yeah.
The only thing that helps him is the fact that it's the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing with that, is like, I just feel like his value is just going to keep going up, at least with this camp, and negotiations are honestly just going to get worse. Speaking of training camp, Ian Rappaport has reported that multiple clubs are proceeding as if veterans will report to camp on July 28th. Obviously, the Pro Football Hall of Fame game was canceled. And the NFL has approved a plan to cover the seats closest to the field this year. There has been rumors that they're going to do some advertising with that as well. So in terms of how the NFL proceeds with training camp and these safety measures, how do you feel like training camp's going to be different this year than past years?
Well, obviously no fans. But I mean, I think overall, things are just going to be very different for right now. Obviously, I think it's very, I think it's very possible that during training camp they're going to make it so that everybody is 6 feet apart from each other in line or whatever, doing whatever they're doing or, whatever. Probably try and do as much stuff outside as possible. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm honestly kind of, well, not surprised, but it feels weird that they're so comfortable doing all of this,
And that's part of my thing, especially after what Dr. Fauci said last week. Like, if the NFL is not in a bubble atmosphere, it seems like they're not going to have a 2020 season because of that. I'm not exactly sure. I do feel like the best case scenario for the NFL at this point is to start in November. I think they should start first weekend of November or maybe last weekend of October or something, and then we can figure it out from there. That way the NBA season can end, and then, we're not kind of having everyone mixed into one schedule. I just think that would make the most sense at this point. Brandon, what's your feeling on that?
I don't think that would happen because I don't think the NFL is going to be trying to be ending their season while the NBA is beginning theirs.
Well, the NBA begins theirs on the 30th.
If you start your season at the end of October or the beginning of November.
Oh, that's right. The NBA
you're going to be
start
ending,
December 1st. Right.
You're going to have your main weeks that determine who makes the playoffs and who doesn't right around at the same time. So,
yeah.
Who knows?
Speaking of the NBA, I have breaking news, guys.
What?
The schedule has been released for the NBA season. We open on July 30th on TNT. The two matchups to open the season are Jazz Pelicans and Clippers Lakers. Your reaction to that opening night slate on July 30th?
I mean Clippers Lakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jazz Pelicans. Wasn't that supposed to be played?
It was Pelicans and Kings. That got canceled.
That would have been kind of funny if they'd played that game. They'd been like, except the Kings aren't even in the thing, so.
I don't know. Are they? Yeah, I think they are in there.
The Kings?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're like 10th or 11th or whatever. Either way.
In Orlando?
Kings are bad. I doubt they're in there.
I have to look it up again. But
yeah. I mean, I'll probably watch Lakers Clippers, but
yeah. I mean, I think that's gonna be a fun matchup. I think the biggest thing with this as well is that this is not gonna, like, the first, let's say, week or two of this is gonna feel really weird because they're not gonna play everybody. It's not gonna be, well, they will play everybody is what I mean. They're not, the rotations are gonna be weird, especially for the Clippers and Lakers. They don't want to like hurt themselves or whatever. So I don't expect LeBron or Anthony Davis to have big minutes. So that's part of the thing for me is at least for the first week, it's just going to be teams kind of in exhibition game mode, especially for teams like the Clippers and Lakers. Shane, your thoughts on that? Do you feel the same way that I do?
What did Brandon say?
These are some crazy games.
What else is on the schedule here?
I'm just looking at the schedule. I mean, you got on August 1st, you got a stacked night. You got Miami versus Denver, Utah, OKC, New Orleans, Pelicans versus Clippers, Philly versus Indy. And then to end the night, you got the Lakers versus my Toronto Raptors.
Oh, boy. August 1st looks really good.
On ESPN in prime time.
Yeah, that August 1st schedule looks pretty good as well. I mean, I think my biggest concern is I just don't feel like, especially these teams that are already in the playoffs, they're going to kind of treat this as exhibition games. Shane, do you feel the same way? Do you think most teams are not going to risk injury, especially early on, and try to elongate the rosters and kind of treat it as preseason for these teams at the top?
Yeah, I mean, especially teams at the top. during that first part, I mean, they don't have anything to lose. So, it's like, yeah, why wouldn't you play it safe? And then use your good, well-rested guys when you need them when the tournament starts. But for the teams at the lower end, it'll be a bit different, obviously, because they're trying to get as high of a seed as possible. So,
yeah. Trying to load this really quick.
It's interesting because they've definitely put all the high-ranked teams. All their games are on TV.
Right. Even though I just don't feel like they're gonna play it too much, as Shane said as well. Yeah, the Kings are in here. It's funny how the East has the Wizards as the only team outside of the top 8, and then the West is filled with the Blazers, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Spurs, and the Suns. I expect the Pelicans to also have a bunch of big games, of course, with Zion. Being the hype train that he is, of course.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to our division previews. This week we are doing the AFC East. Not the most interesting division, but I'm sure we'll have some good discussions on this division. We begin with the New England Patriots. No Brady, obviously, is the main story here. Shane, I'll start with you. What's your expectation in terms of what the Tom Brady-less Patriots should reasonably expect for this season, with Jarrett Stidham most likely going to be starting week 1?
I think it'll be an interesting year for this team. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but they have. I mean, in addition to Brady, they have lost some good pieces, and I still think that Belichick is obviously an incredible coach, and their culture is still really good there, but it's definitely going to be a transition year. It's going to be a shock for everybody, and their schedule. I mean, it's not too bad, but I mean, it's not exactly easy. I don't expect them to make it to the playoffs this year, but I don't think that they will be terrible, because I think they still have, last year we look at them and you think, oh, well, they don't have a very good structure, but they have Brady, who was the reason they won 12 games, and I don't necessarily buy into that, because he's a Brady that was very limited and is older and not as good now. So, it's just, maybe that is the case and they win 12 games again. I don't know. But I just want to wait and see, because it could go either way, really. A lot of people think that they'll still be great. A lot of people are saying that they'll tank and win like 4 games. We'll see.
What is your expectations for Stidham, Brandon? Do you expect big things out of him or no?
No.
Me neither.
Not at all. I don't think he's – I was shocked when they took him, and I think he's just not – some people are like, oh, he's going to be the next Brady. I'm like, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't – they don't seem very confident in him, and that's one of the weird things is we talked about during our draft shows as well about, what are the Patriots doing not taking a young quarterback to build around? Yeah, Stidham is young, but I don't think he's ready to be in the fray here. I just don't. I think that this team's going to struggle, and it's going to be more on this defense, which this defense is still excellent. But the defense is going to have to make even more plays than they did last year, and they were top, 3 or 4 ranked defense last year. They're going to have to make even more plays, I think, to even be competitive in most of these games.
Number 1, weren't they?
I think they did finish number 1, yes.
In terms of points and yards and stuff allowed. Yep. But anyways.
Brandon, who's your X factor for the Patriots this season?
I'm gonna go with N'Keal Harry.
Good pick.
I think if he can be as good as they thought he was gonna be when they picked him up in the draft, I think he can really help them out. Yeah.
He had a down year last year. Pretty much this whole receiving core did, of course, but I think he has a chance to really burst onto the scene, but he just needs more touches, needs to get more comfortable in a slot position. I mean, mostly these three guys here at the top are mostly slot guys, so that's a little bit of a frustration for him, and that's also part of why he had a down year last year. Shane, who's your X factor for this team?
For me, I would say Stephon Gilmore, Defensive Player of the Year a season ago. And I mean, like you said, for this team, this defense is really key. And I think that all starts with him. I mean, this is a great defense, and he is easily the best piece there. And so, especially nowadays with the way the game is changing, like having a good secondary is more important than ever. And that starts with him. So Gilmore for me.
All right, and then just an overview of the team here. They also brought in Marquise Lee, who I think can make a big impact for them as well. The receiving core looks deep, but it's just not very good. Tight end, we complained about the Patriots taking tight ends in our draft shows. Very questionable decision there. O-line is still solid, but so Stidham at least is going to have some time, I think. Running backs are solid. Defense is good. I expect bigger things for Chase Winovich, who was great last year. He'll be even better this year. This team kind of looks pretty old as well. The McCourty bros are, I think, about 33 or something like that. But this defense is pretty old. I think they're still going to be very, very productive. Josh Uche out of Michigan they brought in, though. So there are some young pieces around there. For me, it's going to be Julian Edelman. I don't think he'll be very good this year. A lot of his success was Brady, but he has a good shot to prove that his success wasn't just Brady, that he is actually a top 15, top 20 receiver in the NFL. If there's any year to prove it, it's this year. So I'm going to go with Edelman because if he has success in this offense, Jarrett Stidham will have success in this offense. All right, and then let's move on to our next team here on the list, which is which is the Buffalo Bills. Brandon, you and I both have been really excited about the Bills. When we did the NFL schedule release show, we really liked their schedule. They have a lot of national TV games. We thought that might be a little bit on purpose. What excites you about the Bills this season?
I think they're a well-built team. I think they kind of have a little bit of everything. Their defense is really good. I think their defense is what really gets me most interested for them. They have a pretty easy schedule. And with the New England kind of on the back burner now, I feel like the Bills could knock off New England for the first time in a couple years.
Shane, are you as excited about the Bills as we are?
Yeah, I mean, they were a team. They were that one team last year that was really good that none of us expected to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that was the case because for a long time I've felt very bad for Buffalo for losing 4 straight Super Bowls and just kind of being in this slump. And so yeah, I mean they got some great additions in the offseason, mainly Stephon Diggs. I think that is huge for them, adding on to an already pretty decent wide receiver group, to be honest. But yeah, this defense, I think this is probably the best defense this year in the NFL. So I mean, there's just and Josh Allen too is developing, and I really like where he's going. So I think that they're and the coaching staff as well.
Yeah.
Want to give credit to them. I think this is one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL. So I really like the direction this organization is going in. I think they will be, I think at least for right now, they will probably be the top dogs of this division.
Yeah, Sean McDermott is the name, of course, and his
Right.
staff. Last year, we were extremely impressed with his staff. Just a team that we didn't really think much of, and for that coaching staff to develop Josh Allen as they did, Devin Singletary was a surprise last year as well. For them to really hone in on this offense, and we already knew this defense is built to be great. The coaching staff, as you said, was a huge part of their success last year. And then I'll start with you again, Shane, X Factor player for this Bills organization.
I'll say Diggs. I mean, we know that this defense is great, and I think that the offense is really good too. But I'm very impressed. I was really impressed with Josh Allen last year with his arm strength and his his sense of, I guess, pressure and his ability to escape and run whatever. But I want to see more of him going deep and making these great throws. And I think Stephon Diggs is the perfect guy for that. This is one of my favorite moves of the offseason. I think he will be huge for this team, and especially on the offensive side. And I'm very excited to see where they go with that.
Brandon, your X Factor players for the Bills.
I'm gonna go with. I'm actually gonna go with Ed Oliver, because he was really good in Houston. I think they got him last year, if I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or last year, 2 years ago, he was the 6th overall pick.
He was pretty good last year.
Very underrated.
Yeah, very underrated. He's very good at rushing the passer. Yeah, I think they're stacked on offense and they have a bunch of good players, but I think it's a team where if all the players on defense can come together and play on the level that they can, I think they'll be very hard to beat.
This is the first time where one of you guys stole my picks for back-to-back teams. Brandon stole both of my picks, my first picks for both of the teams because I had Ed Oliver. Overview of the team really quick. Of course, I talked about their offense. Dawson Knox and Tyler Croft are a nice 1-2 punch. This O-line isn't bad. It's not amazing, but it's pretty solid. This defense as a whole, not many big names aside from Ed Oliver and, of course, Tre'Davious White, who's an interception machine. Micah Hyde, Levi Wallace is very underrated. So there are some underrated names, but as a whole defense, there's not many too big names necessarily. But I'm going to go with Devin Singletary. He really pushed the load for them last year. Devin Singletary. He pushed the load for them last year at the running back position. And with Diggs and John Brown at the wide receiver spot, he's going to get much more opportunities to get the ball in and have, I think, a much better year than he did last year. He had a great year last year. I think it's going to be even better, especially with the receiving core there.
And before we move on, I just want to point out, I just noticed they picked up Quentin Jefferson off of the Seahawks to back up Ed Oliver, which is a great pickup in my opinion. I mean, Quentin Jefferson was amazing with the Hawks. I mean,
this is a really interesting, second. In terms of a bench role, guys that can come in this basically 3-4. AJ Epineza, who fell off the board, Vernon Butler, Quentin Jefferson, Mario Addison as well as another veteran. And Josh Norman as well. Don't forget about him. They signed him to a short-term contract. So there are some veteran backups, but also some young guys as well with AJ Epineza there. All right, and then we are moving on to the JETS, 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 Jets. That's probably my favorite chant in the NFL. The Jets, I think it's mostly talking about how Sam Darnold can improve first off. So, Shane, I'll start with you there. What do you expect from Sam Darnold in what is this, year 3 for his career?
I think his impact on the Jets is very obvious. I mean, this team is, night and day without him. I mean, let's just be honest. And so, I really just want to see this guy play a full season. And we hopefully will this year if he doesn't
have mono again
or break his leg or something. Fingers crossed. But anyways, now that New England is less of a power, and if they have him healthy for the year, I think that they could start to be not a powerhouse, but they could start to be competitive, I think. The whole Jamal Adams situation is a pretty big distraction. That's not great, but it is what it is. And so I think it's I think it's very possible that that they could be a lot better than they have been in the past. Aside from the fact that organizationally, I think they're a little bit messy. But like I said, I really want to see Sam Darnold play a full season, and Le'Veon Bell. I want to see how he's better utilized. But even if Sam Darnold is hurt or whatever, their backup is the greatest quarterback in NFL history, Joe Flacco.
Always coming with the Joe Flacco jokes. That's Shane's MO here on the show.
Yeah, that's a joke, by the way. I think he's trash. But
hey, Joe will eat Flacco, man. So Brandon, looking at this, not only Mekhi Becton, who was kind of your main man for the draft, the guy you absolutely loved, especially for Le'Veon Bell, but this entire offensive line, how does it help Le'Veon Bell? Yes, it doesn't look incredible, but of course with Mekhi Becton there, it does look better. And of course, I think you've also spoke highly on George Fant as well. How much is this O-line not only important for Sam Darnold, but Le'Veon Bell as well?
I don't know much about the right side, but I feel like he'll probably run to the left side a lot because Becton was picked up for one reason, to protect the blind side. I wouldn't be surprised to see George Fant get flipped to the other side, because he did that a bit in Seattle. I think Fant actually at one point in one season he played all the positions except for center on the line. But I think people would be remiss to sleep on George Fant.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ironically my current player that's like the superstar would be Jamal Adams. Factor.
It would be Jamal Adams, but we are going to act as he's not on the team.
It would be with a big old asterisk. Would be Jamal Adams. So,
let's imagine that Marcus May is kind of the main safety there, and maybe Austin Davis, the Cal guy.
I'm gonna go with Le'Veon Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he can run, if he can actually have a really good successful season running the ball, I think that'll open up a lot of opportunities for Sam Darnold. Because one of the problems he's had, I think, is a lot of people harp on Seattle for creating a bad quarterback situation, a bad quarterback scenario in Seattle when we have this great quarterback in Russell Wilson. We run the ball so much, it's terrible. He doesn't throw the ball enough. But one thing I've realized is one benefit that Russell Wilson has is because we run the ball so much, when Russell does throw the ball, they hardly ever expect it.
That's why he's always able to get these deep throws as well.
Right, exactly. They if you watch the way they if you watch the defenses, you see most of the time they're hardly ever set up in a pass rush. Like, so yeah, I'm gonna go with Le'Veon Bell.
I think that's an interesting point, especially for Sam Darnold. Needing that running game to help him just wasn't there last year. Le'Veon just wasn't effective. But Shane, who's your X factor? Of course, excluding Jamal Adams. If you want to hear a full take on Jamal Adams, I have the clip up on our YouTube, on our Instagram as well from last week, so you can go check that out. But Shane, who's your X factor here?
I mean, I'll say Sam Darnold just because, like I said, if you look at this team, they're a completely different team when he's playing and when he's healthy. They, later on in the season, I think for the last 9 games, they were like, 7-2 when they had him, which is pretty impressive. And so, yeah, they were 7-6 when they had him. My bad. Mm-hmm. Which is, all things considered, not too bad. So, yeah, I think, having him there, because they clearly have kind of built around him, I think. And so, just I think it's very key for them to make it far that he's healthy and playing.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Adam Gase is probably the frustration with this team more than anything. Just because I don't think him and Sam Darnold fit. I think we can all agree on that. But, this team always has hype around them. It's a strange team in that sense of that there are players on this team like Le'Veon, like Sam Darnold. This receiving core is still nice. You know how big I was on Denzel Mims, who's kind of my guy. There are injury concerns as well. Quincy Enunwa is pretty much always injured, even though I think he's a solid player. I think the loss of Robbie Anderson is actually going to have a huge effect on this team. He was kind of Sam Darnold's main man, and now he's not there. I think Peterman, he showed flashes in with Tampa Bay last year towards the last 4 or 5 games of the season. So I think he can definitely play a lot better with Darnold and kind of continue his success that he had towards the end of last season. Chris Herndon just can't stay healthy. He's a good player when he's, as the theme goes, he can be a good player when he's healthy, but when he's just not on the field as much. The right side of the line, I think Brandon's right. I think you look at George Fant moving to the right side. It's really not that good. Connor McGovern's a nice center. Alex Lewis is okay. Defense is where this team shines, really. Quinn Williams is nice. I know he's got this whole legal thing going on, of course. Steve McClendon and Harry Anderson are nice pieces. I love this linebacking core. Jamari Zanuga, I think, is better than most people give him credit for. C.J. Mosley, who they brought in, he was injured most of last year. Avery Williamson, it's a good linebacking core. Even Jordan Jenkins is nice. This cornerback group isn't incredible, really. The secondary isn't incredible without Jamal Adams. I think you see Ashton Davis, the rookie out of Cal, get more snaps. But my X factor player, just because they're going to lose Jamal Adams, is Marcus May. I think Marcus May has to sort of take the mantle for this secondary to really, and for this whole defense to be successful, because we know the linebackers are going to look good. Defensive line still looks pretty solid. But Marcus May is going to really help not only just the back end of this defense, not only the safeties, but also the corners. To make this team work defensively, I think it has to be Marcus May for me. And then finally, we have the Miami Dolphins. Go ahead, Brandon. Yes.
Can we talk about 1 second about the depth chart of about how Lamar Jackson is a 4th string defensive player on the Jets? Look at the depth chart.
Why is that the case?
I was like, what?
No, that actually is Lamar Jackson. He plays for the Jets. It's a rookie named Lamar Jackson.
I know. That's why I was like, what?
I love how ESPN has the latest news for this man being the MVP, Lamar Jackson.
Indeed.
That's pretty funny.
Maybe he'll be the rookie of the year.
Maybe. That was that nice catch, Brandon. That was sweet.
Imagine having the same name as Yeah, Shane. I saw Shane being like what?
All right, let's move on to the Miami Dolphins. Of course, Tua Tagovailoa. Brandon, you've always had a concern about these Alabama quarterbacks. The more you look at Tua and look at his tape, not only through the draft process, but even now as we're getting closer to the season, hopefully, of course, what's your feeling on Tua and the impact he can make for Miami?
I don't feel like Tua will have a huge impact this year. I could see him getting some game time late this season. I do worry about his fragility. But I do think the Dolphins did good in the draft going out and getting themselves some linemen to protect him.
Yeah.
So
this Dolphins team is pretty good, especially late in the year. This coaching staff did a good job to kind of keep this team competitive when everyone thought they were the worst team in the NFL, getting themselves 5 wins. Shane, do you feel as I do that Tua will start week 1?
At this point, it seems like he will. I don't think he should, but I mean, I think they should kind of. I think you can learn a lot from Fitzpatrick, and I think they should kind of phase each other in and out. You know what I mean? But they seem really gung ho about Tua, and like they just want to play him, which I get it. You got this young rookie that you're really excited about. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing, especially considering some of his health concerns. But whatever. I mean, I don't. We'll see. Um, I don't. I mean, like Brandon said, I don't think he'll make an immediate impact, but I think as time goes on and he develops, I think he could be really good eventually if he is able to stay healthy. But I think I think you need to give it a couple of years for the organization to continue to build. And I mean, if you look at Jordan Howard is a great back.
And they have Matt Breida too.
Breida is a solid backup as well. Decent receiving core. I mean, they have pieces. I think that they just need some time to develop and mesh. But so yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting them to break out and be amazing this year, but I think they could be pretty good a few years down the road once things click.
Mm-hmm. Shane, who's your expected player for them this year?
Ooh, I'll say Jordan Howard because offensively there's going to be not knowing who your starting quarterback is might cause some distractions or lead to players wondering, who's our guy, what do we, and I think having this person that is really a really solid player, having them, it's like, yeah, I'm here, I can make a difference as a runner. And his presence will definitely be important, not on the field but in the locker room as well, I think. And just considering the amount of experience he's had as well. So he would be my guy. But there are a few others I could have gone with, but I'll let you guys talk.
Brendan, who do you have for this Miami team?
I think I'm gonna go with I mean, honestly, Shane took my guy, but maybe Xavier Howard.
Yeah, Xavier's a nice pick. What do you like about this secondary? Because them having Howard and Jones is a fun 1-2 punch there for them, and Noah Igahibo, who, if I'm saying that name correctly, was their, I believe, second, or actually no, late first round pick for them as well. What do you like about this secondary as a whole?
I think it's fast, and it does what a secondary really should be. Like it's fast, it's quick, good ball hawks. As we've seen in the past with the Seahawks, if you have a team that can set up for your linebackers, you should be in a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, let me overview the team really quick. Of course, let's say Tua starts here. You guys, Shane mentioned the running backs. This receiving core is actually really nice, and Mike Gesicki's improving as a tight end. The line's not incredible. Defense has some nice pieces, some kind of underrated pieces in Devon Godshaw, Christian Wilkins, Emmanuel Agba. Raekwon McMillan's nice. Jerome Baker's nice. Kyle Van Noy, of course, Brian Flores trying to bring in that sort of Patriots mentality, and you kind of saw at the end of last year, but bringing in Kyle Van Noy is another step for that as well. Not a tremendously huge contract for him either. Of course, Brandon mentioned the secondary. I'll go Devontae Parker. In order for Tua to have a good season, if he starts the full year, he needs a great receiver. Devontae Parker played like a number one last year. Took him way too long. Let's just be honest. It took him way too long for him to get to a point where he can play as like a number one receiver. He should have been that coming out of the league. He didn't do that, unfortunately. But last year was his breakout year. If Tua is going to play, he needs a number one. Devontae Parker showed he can be a number one last year. So that needs to continue, especially if Tua plays. And then finally, record predictions for the AFC East. Who do you guys have for record predictions? Shane, I'll go with you first.
I think the Bills will be first place in the division at 11-5. Then second, I'll say the Jets at 9-7.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Assuming everything goes well. The Patriots third, I'd say about 8-8. Mm-hmm. And then fourth place Dolphins I'll go 6-10.
So I've got Bills at 12-4.
Uh-huh.
I've got I'm gonna say Jets, but I think there's a pretty big drop off from 12-4 down to 9 and 7.
Yeah, Shane had
then
9 and 7 as well. Sorry about that, by the way.
What?
Never mind. Go ahead. Continue.
Then I have you know what? I'm gonna have the Dolphins in third.
The Fins.
I have them in third, getting one more win over the Patriots than they usually do. I think they're going to sweep the Pats. So I think they'll be 8-8, and I think the Pats will be 7-9.
Mm-hmm. All right, interesting stuff. I don't have too many complaints here. I think the Bills definitely win the division. I like the Fins a little more than the Pats. I don't know about the Jets right now. I want to see what changes with Jamal Adams. And I want to see, depending on what their haul is that they get back for Jamal Adams, that might determine how their record does look. But yeah, I think most of the records are pretty fair. They're very close. So, all right.
Robert, have you been writing down our predictions to see who wins at the end?
I write them down for Instagram, but I haven't been posting them too much as we posted the full-length clips of these more recently.
We should during the season, we should definitely do go through each of the games of the week and do a prediction sort of thing.
Yeah, we will have. I think
keep tally of it and
yeah. My plan is I'm hoping to do a fantasy league this year. I don't know how many people are going to be down to do a fantasy league with, especially if the season doesn't go full. I've been thinking about doing a baseball league as well, but I'm not sure yet. But at least for the show, I want to this year do a fantasy football league. We're planning on doing PPR and non-PPR. If you are interested in joining that league, DM me at Szolosi on Instagram if you guys are interested in that league. I'm hoping to have 10 for PPR and non-PPR, but I want to do that for fantasy football and then for fantasy basketball next year. I want to do those two for the show, but we'll see. And then we'll definitely do we had a Pick'em League last year. Not many people joined the NFL Pick'em League last year, so hopefully we can get more people in that as well. So yeah, that's kind of the long-term plans as we get to the fall. But yeah, thank you, Shane and Brandon, and as always for joining me. Cole and I are going to have a show out hopefully by Sunday night. More than likely, we're going to go through the NBA schedule a little bit more and do some other fun stuff, talk some UFC as well. So thank you guys for joining me. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I will hopefully see you guys by the end of the week. But again, have a great weekend. Thanks again, Shane and Brandon, for a great show as always.
Thank you.
See you guys.